you contacted me from Taiwan
Yeah.
because you start to write some paper about the smart city in Taiwan. Uh,
It's a paper that incorporates the smart city end, but I'm also focusing on a more of a technological aspect in regard to autonomous driving.
okay.
So I'm comparing the the technology necessary in order to facilitate the world that's full of autonomous vehicles.
Hmm.
So part of my investigation is analyzing the technology behind autonomous vehicles, and
Okay.
part of it is also the smart city aspect.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, I will let you ask your questions, but before that, I
Mm-hmm.
want you maybe to remind me at the end that I can give you some contacts. I think that you have some knowledge exchange networks on
Mm-hmm.
the development of autonomous vehicles on
Mm-hmm.
smart cities. It means that some labs are producing open source technology to spread the advancements. So maybe it can be interesting for you to contact them. I have some contact in Estonia that are doing this. And I know that in Taiwan, especially around the Social Innovation Lab of Taipei, you have some person working and close to start a real life experiments of autonomous vehicles. But maybe you already
Mm-hmm.
know that. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw an example from Starlake that
Okay.
they're doing the shuttle buses like in
Hmm.
universities that they're testing out already as of now. So yeah, the technology is progressing pretty quick.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So what's your first question?
So like I'd like to start off out with a definition of a smart city, as it's a relatively general term. So how would you describe a smart city?
Yes, so indeed, the definition is quite wide, and it started. You have two phases in the smart city history. Before 2014, so from the 90s to 2014,
Mm-hmm.
it was mainly based on IT, but on infrastructure and data to make the city more efficient. And from 2014, because of the first experiments, the definition of smart city started to change. Also, because you have had non-tech cities that started to claim that they were in a process of being smarter, more on a social and quality of life side. So
Mm-hmm.
now, from 2015, the last definition that has been given on smart cities, it comes from the International Telecommunication Union, and it said a smart, sustainable city is an innovative city that uses information and communication technologies to improve quality of life, efficiency, and competitiveness, while ensuring that it meets the needs of present and future generations with respect to economic, social, and environmental aspects. So it's
Mm-hmm.
very wide indeed, and it's not only
Yeah.
technology focused, it's more focused on the quality of life of the citizens.
Mm-hmm. And what would make a smart city successful, and how would that success be measured?
Well, I did a survey interview on a network of experts called RIL. It's the Finnish Association of Civil Engineers.
Mm-hmm.
And as for them, they commonly said that the main way to see that a city is a smart city is being successful is because of its capacity to have a strong cohesion of stakeholders around the project. And so it's mainly the capacity of building a sort of good exchange between the inhabitants. The technology must be find other way to make a better network between the inhabitants and the services, at least public services, but also private company. So it's a lot about network, but a network that includes the people inside.
Hmm. And I'm sure that a smart city as a whole is comprised of many separate sections that would have to make the system to work properly. And what would you say these sections would be?
So yes, of course, we usually divide the city development fields, but we first need to understand that a city needs a holistic approach, because everything is connected, and you cannot cut the management of the city in independent sectors or management, because necessarily it creates silos, and this is what we all try to escape now. It's the management by silos. So it's good for planning to create different fields, but then when you want to manage transformations, so you have to be able to align all the sectors, and so you look for what's called transversal inside the different fields, because you need to bring all the people, all the different departments in the same process. So a part of that, if we consider that it's a need to have an holistic vision on the city, we can of course cut the smart city topic in some sectors, and usually the energy sector makes sense. You have energy, mobility, infrastructure, that can include the real estate, public real estate, also economy, and and the citizenship. I mean policy. Yeah, you also have another possibility, that is culture, because you can usually invite the inhabitants to join the decision makers on projects by organizing some events, and yeah, it needs a lot of pedagogy. If you want to transform your city, or even a neighborhood of one city, you need to have the knowledge of the inhabitants, for them to understand what you are doing.
Hmm. And I'm sure that the sheer amount of data that is collected for a smart city to run properly is enormous. So what would be the main issues with regard to the collection of this data?
Well, as for me, I can identify two issues. I think that you have to set the limits, the acceptation limits between what is useful and insightful as a data, and what takes too much privacy to the inhabitants. So, of course, in an authoritarian regime, we could say that taking all the information on all the inhabitants we want can be the way to be the most effective on understanding how people work and how the city works. But this is not what the population wants, at least in democracies. So people ask for privacy, and they don't want the state to investigate in details their lives. And so, yeah, that's the first thing to consider. It's about the data privacy, and where can you set the limits of the data you collect to make your city more efficient. And then there is another point that can be an issue. Is I think that you have to automate the best processes for efficient data analytics. So it means that you have to think before collecting data. You have to think about what will be your data architecture, what will be the processes. So you have to determine which data you will take and how you will use it, which type of calculation you will do on it to have the results you are looking for. So it asks for having a good understanding on the whole data that can be collected on the city, and make your own experiments to be able to have the better processes. The other thing to take in consideration is that collecting and analyzing data can cost you money. You need computers to stock to make calculations, and also you need sensors to collect the data. So you have when you are working on a project of city, you have to take in consideration that you cannot spend public money for nothing, like that. So there is something to have in mind, is that you have to set a balance in between what costs the data driven decisions and which one are the most effective regarding what they cost.
And say once this data is collected and the idea of a smart city is achieved, what possibilities open up? With this concept, what does this give to everyone?
I guess that, to everyone it's something else, but the first thing it gives to the person who collects the data and analyzes it, it gives you a possibility of improvement. So there are always rooms to maneuver to do better analysis. The main the main goal of technology on cities currently is to be able to solve the sustainability issue, and to be less resource consuming and to cost less to manage. So if you have a good understanding on how the infrastructure are used by the inhabitants, you can of course improve the processes, and you will look for a way to be more sustainable in terms of environment and also in terms of economy. So you will try to make your city work more efficiently. And so that's why we collect data on the cities, and this is how we get a city smarter. The thing is, when you open those data by open data sets, so at this moment you will improve other things. You will improve the transparency. That is something that a lot of citizens take care about. And so some associations can go into the open data sets to take some information about the public management, or they can also improve their knowledge on certain fields to be able, to create new services behind the association. And it's kind of the same for startups and companies. So when you publish datasets, you create a sort of hub for innovation, because you will have entrepreneurs that will come to analyze the datasets and to identify ways to improve the city. So actually, innovation is a very global process, and it's not imaginable to say that it's only the city and it's only the public sector role to do it. No, it's something that comes from the civil society, from the academics, of course, from the startups and the companies, private businesses. Everyone is a bit in it. So if you can collect data by your own way, and then you publish it and you respect some standards, so all the people that are interested in the digital transformation of the city will be able to join the workforce, and this is how you get the most result.
And with regard to transportation, how would the way in which people commute and just transportation as a whole, how would that change with the implementation of a smart city?
I don't know really what will be the future of transportation. Probably it will not change so much because if we look for what they were forecasting in I don't know, in the 60s, they said that in 2000 we will have flying cars and things like that. So actually, if we want to be humble, stay humble on what will be the next transportation, the most acceptable option is to say that it will not change so much. We will still have trains and cars and bikes, but maybe it will be more effective. At least how to say, it will match the needs of the people more precisely, and it will cost less. And of course, if we can change some ways of running the transportation by an energy that uses petrol, and we say that petrol is not good anymore, so we look for post-carbon cities. So we will probably find a sustainable energy to fill our transportation system. I guess that must be something that will be the most the better step forward. But there is something else. In digital cities, we can also imagine that transportation will be less used for non-reason. And this is especially what we saw during this lockdown of the pandemic. People started to consider that you don't need necessarily to move to an appointment. If you can give a call, or if you can do it by remote. So this is something that when you take your car because you are used to go to a rendezvous for business, but now the digital transformation allows us to do it from remote. Of course, it's not the same contact, and we are social persons, so we always enjoy the contact of other person. But I think that transportation can also be improved by considering the digital mobility.
And would any drastic changes to infrastructure be necessary to the current cities across the globe?
My point of view on that is that most of the smart cities that will come are based on existing cities, and I don't think that in existing cities it will be possible to invest a lot of money to create new infrastructures. because we already pay in the developed countries. We already have credits and debts on what we did, so we have layers of innovation, and we each time we put a new innovation on the top, we still have to pay for the previous one, you know. So it takes a lot of time to pay all these debts. So I think it's impossible to cancel or destroy the previous infrastructure and change it like that. At least we will not see it in short term. It takes decades. Where you can see it is in post natural disaster cities, or in brand new cities or maybe neighborhoods. So yeah, when you do not have the tech, for example, you don't have the tech in this place of the world for communication, and then you invest in a communication network. So of course you do not buy the old lines from 30 years ago. You invest directly in the 4G, 5G, and so this is how some cities can be up to date on the tech. But it's at a point of one generation, but on the next generation it will be the same for them. They will have all the infrastructure to pay, and will look for ways to progressively modernize it.
And now, different countries have different economic statuses, so that makes you wonder how accessible this technology would be from a worldwide perspective.
I think that there are different labs in different parts of the world. It can be some public labs, but mainly private laboratories and research and development at the moment. They are very close one to each other in developing new tech. So yeah, at least if you have this interest for autonomous cars, I don't know how many person work on it, but I can guess by my traveling that all the tech cities, smart cities have in turn one lab that work on it. I went on just this last year. I went in Taipei, Taiwan. I went in Tel Aviv in Israel, and I was in Tallinn in Estonia. And all those three cities have labs working on autonomous vehicles. And if they don't have already a prototype running on a real life situation like a parking or something like that, the closed road, they almost did it. So you know. I think those kind of technology can come worldwide at the same time, more or less. And they will not have any monopoly. You will not have one company that will be able to develop the technology and furthermore conquer the global market worldwide. I think it's not really possible as a scenario.
And how do the countries that their main goal is to develop smart cities ensure that it would be sustainable, and how would that sustainability be measured?
Well, the way for a city to be more sustainable is to cost less in terms of maintenance of the services and infrastructures, and also to have a lower impact on environment. So there are ways to calculate that. I guess if you observe the quantity of energy that is consumed by the city yearly or monthly. So you can already observe this phenomena of energy consuming. And then you also have different ways to observe the sustainability of a city while observing, for example, the quality of air. So it's a data that is more and more observed worldwide in cities by sensors. So you deploy a network of sensors on your city, and you can observe the quality of air depending of the season in the year, but also depending of the time in the day, and you really can see that there are peaks of pollution at the moment where people go to work or go back home after working, on the morning and at the end of the day. And so these are things that you can probably improve once you have the data. So you find ways to have more precise insights on how your city can be more sustainable.
Mm-hmm. Now, technology is constantly changing and improving. So I was wondering how future-proof the technology would be that would be needed to make a smart city, the technology inside that's already gathering data. How future-proof would that be?
Well, as for me, I think so. If we want the technology to keep in the future, it's needed to think about understand it as a constant evolution. And if we understand that innovation is a constant research and development, so we will understand that it's not only the end result that needs to be paid. You have a lot of people, enterprises or researchers that spend life to experiment things and to improve the new technologies, etc. And so this whole process asks probably for new business models. If technology is considered as a common good, just like internet is, and just like the datas, so we will have to think new business models that are not only based on property, but rather based on on the use, on the free use of new steps, of new advancements. So I think that standardizing the technology is one of the first way to organize the technology sector and help it to be future proof. And then once you done the standard, if you can open open the plans, etc. So if you produce open source technology, and if we find way to produce open source technology, probably the whole world will benefit it. Then from an entrepreneur perspective, it's hard to imagine, because you always have to look for your way to make money, to pay your salaries, open source is hard to consider from a private, independent business perspective. But and we don't really want an economy of innovation that is filled by public subsidies, because it's not what private sector wants most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, well, the technology in itself will have to change on each period of time. So it's not future proof in a way, but the technology sector can be future proof if we find a way to sustain it constantly and to keep evolving. So it asks for reducing the risks of innovating, because there is a lot of risk. You have a lot of chance to fall down when you try something that no one have never done, but one day someone succeed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so do you think that this would be fueled more by the public sector or the private sector? Like the idea of a smart city. Well,
Well,
who would it be fueled by?
I don't know. I don't know, but I can say that there is something that is a good way to understand how we do innovation. Is that you have what is called the technology push, and what, I have it somewhere here. Technology push versus market pull. So these are two forces at work at the same time. You have people that produce new technology and they want to push it on the public space because to mainly those people who produce new tech are private company, and they push it to the public sector to deploy it on the city, on the public infrastructure, etc. And so you also have the opposite force, but it's an opposite force, but it goes in the same way, and this is why it works. It's the market pool. So the people at the end, they want new tech in their everyday life to make the life easier. So yes, the public sector, when it represents the voice of the citizens, is usually in demand for new technology. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that this asks for a reflection on what kind of society are we building. It's not only consuming the new tech at the moment where it comes out without thinking of what will be the consequences on the way we live in long term. And that's a reflection to have on even on the smart city field. It's what kind of city do we want to have, and what's the most important? Is it to have good control of the transportation system, or is it that the people have a quality of life that's the best?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
Yeah. So that's all the questions that I've had so far. So
right.
yeah,
I
I'd like
just
to.
want to tell you that you can find, I don't know if you went on my Medium account, but I have written 3 articles on Smart City last summer, and you can find it. You can find a lot of information. I think most of the questions you asked are answered in those articles. The first is called Smart City Defined by Insiders. You also have Smart City Stakeholder Roles and Needs, and the last one is Smart City Case Success Factors.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you can probably find some information in that.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
So
thank you, Gil.
no, thank you for taking time out of your day.
Yeah.